Samantha. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
You're doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
So how was your trip in to the office today?
It's good.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
enjoying the nice weather? It's pretty warm, right?
Yeah, it's getting better than it was before.
Right. So hopefully that makes your trip in just a little bit easier. Awesome. So would you mind just telling me a little bit about what's life been like for you since the last time we spoke? How's everything been with you?
It's been good.
Yeah.
I have worked on my journaling, and I've been starting to work out a little bit more.
Awesome.
But school is coming to an end, so it's getting a lot more work is coming about, and working, and then my dog, and just trying to do my schoolwork, and it's just sometimes I get really stressed out. But most of the time I'm able to handle it.
Okay.
But sometimes I have 3 papers due in a week, and I just I'm a zombie by the end of the week, and I don't know how to handle that. So
I just want to let you know I'm really proud of you, and I feel like you've been very resourceful in finding those things like working out and journaling that have helped you that we discussed last week, and I feel like that's a huge strength on your part to keep up with that, even in the midst of all of these papers piling up on you and feeling stressed out with that. And I also want to let you know that feeling stressed out around this time of the year with the 5 courses that you do have and working and your dog and all that kind of stuff is completely normal. You never have to feel like you're not doing well just because you're stressed out. That's a completely normal reaction to any student at the end of the year. So I did hear in there that you have a lot more assignments, but you're kind of feeling like with working out and journaling, you're staying on top of it a little bit better. Can you just tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that? Like, you feel like you're doing better with that now than the last time I spoke to you? What do you mean exactly?
Well, I still do them very last minute.
Okay.
But I seem to be a lot less stressed about doing them last minute. I've kind of just came to the feeling that I'm not gonna, if I stress out about it, and I'm just not gonna end up doing it until last minute anyway. So I just tried to not stress out about it, stress about doing last minute. So I feel better a little bit. But there, like I said, I have some weeks where there's a lot of papers due.
Right. So I'm hearing that for the most part you've done a really good job of cutting down on some of that stress. However, you still kind of do some things last minute, and that's something that you kind of want to change. Just be more on top of things. But for the most part, you're feeling a little less stressed. And when things start to pile up, of course, like any student, you're going to feel that stress coming back to you. Is that kind of what I'm...
Yeah, that's pretty much, because it all piles up, and then I can do tomorrow, or do the next day, and then when it's the next day, I'm really stressed out about doing it.
Of course.
And then it's just emotional, because then I get emotional, and why didn't I do this earlier? And then
Okay. So I'm hearing that you're not feeling the stress ahead of time. You're kind of feeling it last minute, and that's sort of what almost in a way motivates you to get it done, is that stress.
Yeah.
So what are you doing at those times where you start to feel the stress kind of well up in you, and then you just say you don't feel stressed anymore? Are you journaling at those times? Are you going to the gym at those times? What kind of self-care are you engaging in, or any self-care at all? What kind of activities are you doing?
Sometimes I'll take my dog for a walk if I feel that I'm getting too stressed out about it, which isn't a good thing, because I'm not doing my schoolwork. I'm just pushing it back further.
Right.
So
sort of like a double-edged sword, almost. To cut down on your stress, you have to do things. You feel like you have to do things that don't have anything to do with school. But then when you do those things, you're avoiding your schoolwork, which at the last minute produces more stress, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just wondering if we can we can explore, because last session we ended with a couple of goals, and we kind of talked about those a little bit already, is just going to the gym, working out a little bit more, just kind of relieve your stress, and then also journaling, and we did a exercise last time called mapping. So when you start to feel that stress come up, you just kind of write, ground yourself, just write about what's going on in your surroundings, and maybe that way we could discuss some triggers of that stress. So I was just wondering how the mapping and the journaling worked out for you.
It was good at first. Sometimes when I towards the end, towards coming to this session, I would find myself getting irritated because I'd be writing about it, and then I'd be like, why am I writing about this? I should just be doing my homework. Okay. And so I feel like one of my biggest triggers is that, like, when I know I'm stressed, and I'm like, hey, I can't do this right now, I'm really stressed out, I need to take a break, that's, like, a really big trigger for my stress, because when I'm taking a break, and, like, say, for example, like, walking my dog, all I'm thinking about is, like, doing my homework, and how I'm not doing it, and how, like, I'm using another way to get out of it.
Right. So you almost feel guilty when you take time for yourself. Is that kind of, okay. And the mapping, in some aspects, was good for you to just kind of find out some of those triggers, but at the same time, felt like, why am I doing this when I could be doing homework?
Exactly.
Like, you just have too much stuff for that. It's a little bit too time-consuming for you. Okay. We can definitely, as our session goes on today, we can definitely explore, like, different things that we can try out for next time, because mapping is a good tool to use, but it doesn't work for everyone. No. And that's totally okay. Like, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, so you don't need to worry about that. We can definitely work together to find something that fits your schedule and your lifestyle a little bit better. Okay. So I was just wondering if I could speak with you a little bit about what's going on with you in terms of employment, and then another thing that you kind of mentioned as well was you got a new puppy, Molly. So I was just wondering, let's talk about employment first. How's that going for you?
It's going really well, because I did talk to, like, my supervisor and told him about, like, how school's going for me, and he's really understanding. And he's like, you know, like, you can take some time off. You don't have to come in all the time. Like, it's okay. Like, you're gonna be here full time in, like, a month, so it's okay if you take some time off and just focus on school. So it was really nice that he was, like, really understanding.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
About it. Yeah. But it was hard at the same time, because I want to work, because I like working, and, like, I don't, financially, it's really, like, scrunching down on me because I'm not working that much because of that reason. But then it stresses me out, like, financially, because I'm like, well, if I don't work, I don't get money, but then I have to do school work, so I can't work, and then it's just, like, everything, like, piles onto each other, and it's just, like, everything creates stress. So it doesn't matter, like, even though my boss is like, you don't have to come in, it still stresses me out because I want to go in, because I want to work. Okay,
well, I'm hearing some really good things from that statement. You enjoy your work, and you like to be there. You want to work things out with your boss. Like, you talk to him, which is very courageous of you to be able to approach your boss with those concerns. And I'm glad that you got the positive reaction that you did, and that you are taking a little bit of time off. But at the same time, I know it's hard to not be working, because you are going to school full-time and you need to be making money to sustain yourself. So that is kind of a hard trade-off to make, is, like, for your sanity and your mental health. But then on the other hand, you wish you could be working for, because you need to be financially stable, right? So that is another kind of almost like a catch-22, is, like, if you're not at work, you're not getting the income, but at the same time, you're taking some time for yourself, which might make your studies a little bit easier. So one thing I am hearing you say over and over again is that everything piles up. So can we just unpack that a little bit more, and what you kind of mean when you say everything just piles up, what that looks like for you?
It kind of just feels that, like, after everything, like, even though, like, I'm trying really hard, like, to, like, not be stressed out about it, it's like, if I can't work because of school, then that stresses me out. But if I worked, then at work I'd be stressed out about school. So, like, it feels like everything's, like, in the same area. Like, if I was, like, I can't even separate my stress into different areas. It's just, like, all, like, compacted in one. Okay. So I feel really stressed out about the fact that, like, I wish it was just separate. Like, I can kind of separate how I feel about my puppy, because it doesn't involve me going to school or work. Like, but with school and work, it all just kind of, like, if I go to work, I can't do my schoolwork, or if I, so that's just kind of, like, how it piles up and whatnot.
Okay. So I'm hearing that your stress that you feel from work as well as from school just kind of, like, gets mixed together in it sounds like you kind of have, like, a fast-paced lifestyle right now. You don't really have a lot of time for yourself, and you just kind of get caught up in this almost, like, endless tug of war between how to balance school and work. Is that kind of...
It's exactly true, yeah. Like, I'm always, like, drawn between doing schoolwork and going to work, so...
Okay. So you did talk a little bit earlier about how you talked to your boss and you had a very open conversation, which I think is great. And I'm glad that you guys have that relationship and that dialogue about kind of cutting back your hours a little bit. And I know that is hard financially. I just want to do a little bit of an exercise. It's called scaling. So basically, we'll focus on work for a second.
Okay.
So on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being none at all, totally fine, and 10 being overwhelmed, can't handle it, can't get out of bed in the morning to kind of think about it, right?
Okay.
Where is your level of stress on that scale with cutting back your hours and not having that extra income?
It's like a 7.
A 7?
I wouldn't want to say it's less than that because, like, it doesn't keep me from going out, but it does keep me from doing my schoolwork, so.
Right. Okay. So that's a pretty high on the scale. I just want to focus on together, hopefully getting you from a stress level of a 7, even just down to a 6, right?
Okay.
Like not biting off more than we can chew, so that adds to your stress, but just taking that stress from a 7 down to a 6.
Okay.
And I just want to explore some ways that I can help you get there, and some things we can do together, and some goals that we can set. But I just want to really quickly focus on. What was I going to say? You said something that I wanted to explore. I can't remember. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
So talking about work again. So we did a scaling question about how stressed out you're feeling about having to cut back your hours. Does the fact that you only have about a month left of school and that you'll be able to kind of make up that lost income in the summertime when you're working there full time, does that help cut down on your stress at all when you think about that? Or
it does. It really does help.
Yeah.
I feel a lot more relief when I do because then I don't have, like, I'm not, like, typically at this time of the year I'm scrambling to find a full-time job, and just to know that I have a full-time job coming April, like, makes it a lot easier on myself, knowing that I have this, so it's fine.
Right. Okay, that's great. So where does just introducing that thought into your mind and just kind of telling yourself, I know it's hard right now, and I know that I am maybe financially struggling a little bit more because I had to cut my work hours back, just introducing the idea that, but in a few weeks' time, I'll be able to kind of make that up and start saving a little bit more because I am working 40 hours a week full time, right?
Right.
So you said that your stress level is up here at a 7. Where does that stress level go when we think about that?
It definitely brings you down to like a 5.
A
it
5?
Definitely makes me feel that, like, a lot more relieved to know that it's going to be, that I only have like almost like just under a month left. It brings a lot less stress, but then it's kind of reverses itself when I think that, I only have a month, like half a month left, but then it makes me realize that I have a lot to do in that 1 month, so that's kind of like how it makes me stressed out, is like, I have like only 1 more left, but then I have so much to do, so.
Okay, so that kind of connects back to what we talked about before about how your stress from school and work just kind of mix in together, right? Like, you get happy and a little bit of stress relief when you think about one aspect of work, but then all of a sudden you can't help but at the same time think about, wow, I only have that much time left to do all these assignments. Is that kind of where you're at right now when you think about that? Okay, so I just want to say that it's really good to remind yourself that you do only have that little amount of time left, just to help when you're feeling anxiety about that cut in your income. But at the same time, I think a good goal for us would be to work on separating how you think about school and how you think about work. Okay. And thinking about those in like a separate way so that your stress can be low in one area and high in another, instead of both of them rising together at the same time and then you becoming overwhelmed, right? So I just want to talk a little bit about schoolwork. Okay. So you are taking 5 courses. You are working on the side. And you do have your puppy, of course. So can you just tell me a little bit about what your assignments are like right now for you?
They're, considering that it's getting a lot more towards the end of the semester, they're getting a lot heavier, like a heavier load of, like, not just the assignments itself, but like the number of papers, and plus like the number of pages per paper. Like, some of my papers that I have coming up are like limits of like 10 pages to 15 pages, so that definitely puts a really strong load on me, because I'm like, I have to worry about like all this stuff, and it's not like if it was just like a small paper that I could do in like a night. It's like a paper that actually takes a lot of time to do. Okay. So it's a really big stress, so just thinking about like the amount.
Okay. So I think another good goal that we could set, which would be a little bit short term because you are done school in about a month. But until then, it's still important that we kind of get this figured out in the meantime, right? Like, I don't want you to just kind of like be like biting your lip and like just suffering through it for the next month, right? Like, we should kind of work together to find a goal to alleviate some of that stress. So you talked a little bit about before about how everything piles up and how you tend to leave things to the last minute because it helps you cut down on your stress.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the last minute, your stress kind of goes through the roof almost.
Right.
It's a lot worse and more intense. So I just want to explore with you what it would be like to, instead of having our mapping exercise and
Mm-hmm.
writing in your journal, to replace that with maybe like an agenda that you could cut down those bigger assignments into smaller chunks
Mm-hmm.
and have it written out somewhere, because I know you're a very visual person,
Mm-hmm.
and have it maybe even like a calendar on your
Mm-hmm.
wall where you can see, okay, today, so this 10-page paper is due in 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So today, if I write 1 page, if
Mm-hmm.
I write my introduction, I'll be on track.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day have it written out of, okay, today if I write my thesis statement and map out a little bit about what I'm going to talk about, that's all I got to do for today. So then instead of having like a 10-hour day of writing out a 10-page assignment, you can do maybe like half an hour to an hour every single day.
Right.
Do you think that would help you at all to kind of like alleviate some of that stress? Or
Yeah, I think that would actually help a lot, because like you said, I'm very big on visuals, but I don't. But what really bothers me is like I've tried that before, and I just like, I just can't do it. But then when I do it, I feel a lot better about myself. It's just like, but I only have a month left, so I feel like if I did that, I'd probably stick to it more than I would like at the beginning of the year than how I was then.
Right. And so just thinking about things shorter term and taking things a day at a time would maybe help you to stay committed to an exercise, rather than thinking about things in like a grand scheme of things. Like you just said, I only have a month left, so I could do it for a month, right?
Yeah.
But if you have like months and months to plan out on a calendar, it just becomes a little bit overwhelming. Is that kind of...
Very true, yeah.
Okay. So that's definitely something positive that's on our side, like a huge strength and an advantage that we have is that you only have a month left of school. So I think we should definitely capitalize on that and take it for what it's worth, and kind of maximize the potential that small amount of time has. So I think that's something that we could definitely try, is just even a week at a time, just taking things a week at a time and just seeing what you have due that week, and breaking things up into appropriate size chunks, like an hour today, an hour tomorrow, and then that way it's a little bit easier to work around your work schedule as well.
Right.
So if you're working like an 8-hour day, you can just do half an hour in the evening, right? And then when you don't have work one day, you can do a couple more hours that day, just kind of like balance things out a little bit better. Do you think that would be...
I think that would be actually really good.
Yeah. Okay. So now I just want to move on, now that we've talked about work and we've talked about school. I just want to talk about your new puppy, Molly, and how she figures into all of this. So I know in our previous session we talked about how she's kind of a source of stress right now, but I also heard one really good thing that you said earlier, that taking her for walks, getting out of the house, spending some time with her is actually proven to be a stress relief for you. So can you just explore that with me a little bit and just tell me a little bit about how she figures into the whole...
Okay. Well, lately, I would say my stress with her has gone down. I feel like for example, the other day I took her to the dog park, and like I just walked around and just like lost track of time and just mentally like relieved myself, and it was really nice because it's just like I felt relieved after I left, and then I came back home and I sat down and I actually like did a lot of work. So I feel like my stress with her has gotten better. Like I don't feel as stressed. I also think it is because like she's getting older and she's not like as like puppyish as she was before. But yeah, like I feel like that my stress with her isn't as bad. Like I still question like what I'm gonna do with her like on weekends, but that I feel like I don't make it a big stress. Like I'm like, hey, I'll find someone to watch her, or I'll pay someone to watch her, or like I'm not super stressed about it.
Okay, that's great. I definitely think that you should. I would encourage you to keep up that positive self-talk about, it's not a big deal. Finding somewhere for her to go on the weekend. I'll just see, the regular dog sitters that I like. Telling yourself that it's not a big deal sometimes can help make things not a big deal, right? It's all about how you interpret it,
right?
And that kind of connects back to the way that you're thinking about school and work as well. When I use that example of scaling and how you were at a 7 when you thought about having to cut your hours back, but then when you gave yourself a little bit of time to just think about the positives, and positively your inner dialogue was positive about how you only have a month left before you're working full time, and then your stress went from a 7 to a 5, right? And then also with school, just thinking about how you can break things up into smaller chunks and telling yourself that you are capable and that you can be on top of things, and then doing that in practice.
Right.
So I think that would be another goal that we could have, and it would be a little bit easier one to do on your own as well, at home, almost as like some homework, is just on a daily basis, hour to hour, minute to minute, just trying to have your inner dialogue stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that would be something that you'd be able to do as like a homework assignment almost?
Yeah, I think I can do that, because being positive is a lot better, because then I feel not as much stress.
Right.
Than being negative about it all the time.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and that's just something too that you can literally do at any time, any place, no matter where you are. You don't need extra like help with that. You can just do it like it's an inner dialogue, right? So you can just do it no matter where you are, and it can help a lot. So just going back to Molly for a second, I think it's really great that she's kind of proven to be more of a stress relief and a strength for you going through all of the stress, rather than a source of the stress. So I think that's really great, and I think that getting out of the house and getting that fresh air can make such a big difference as well, and just maybe even taking her on a daily walk would be another great thing that you could do in between this session and our next session, and just see how you feel. Is that another...
Yeah, it really helps when I do that, and I enjoy it when I do it too. Like, it's not like I don't make it a daunting task like I do with homework, so it's really nice as a reliever, but at the same time it makes me mad that it's just like, you can't just always just take her for a walk because you're stressed, or you can't just do this because you're stressed, because, like, alternatively, I would rather do that than do my homework.
Right.
So.
Okay. So, and I do want to touch on that a little bit, too, is I want to make sure that I'm not giving you too many homework assignments to do, because I know that last time when we tried mapping, it was just a little bit too much. And I just want to make sure that the positive inner dialogue, and even the nightly walk with Molly, you don't need to feel like you have to do that, right? It's just something to keep in mind that you can do, that you can just remind yourself, hey, like, I feel a little bit more refreshed, and even in the middle of a really long assignment, you can just say, you know what, I'm going to go around the block with her just to kind of get my mind back on track here. Just keep in mind that that is something that you can do, and you deserve to take that break, and you deserve that time for yourself. So now I just kind of want to talk about, just kind of recap everything that we have talked about, because we have about 5 minutes left of our session here today. And just kind of correct me if I'm wrong, or if I missed something important, or if there's anything you want to add, just jump in at any time, okay?
Okay.
So we began by talking a little bit about your motivation, and how it's been actually a little bit, your stress level has gone a little bit down since the last time we talked, because you have been going to the gym more. Mapping didn't exactly work out for you, but it was a little bit helpful to find out like what your triggers were. But we're kind of gonna scrap that and just try some other type of exercise in the meantime. Then we talked about how your employment, you had a really great conversation with your boss, and you got those hours cut back, and I think that's really great that you saw that you needed a little bit more self-care, and you jumped on it. That's a huge strength. But at the same time, it's a source of stress because you're not having that extra income. So then we discussed about how you only have a month left of school until you are working full-time, and that positive inner dialogue that you have with yourself when you think about work can really help to relieve your stress. So then we moved on to Molly, and how your new dog has been kind of a source of stress relief rather than stress for you, and that taking her for a walk or spending time with her can really help you get through some of those tough times. And then we talked about potentially breaking your bigger assignments, because you said that at the end of the year you have like longer papers to hand in, how you can break those down into smaller chunks, and how that might help you to write it on a calendar, hang it on your wall, so that you can visually see, okay, I have an hour to do today, an hour to do tomorrow, just to stay on top of things. So the goals that we identified from our conversation today was to keep a positive inner dialogue over the next week, to spend a little bit more time with Molly, or just use her as a source of stress relief when you are feeling stressed out, and just take her for a quick walk if you need to. And then also to map some things out on your wall about assignments to help you stay on top of them a little bit better. Is that kind of everything that we discussed? Is there anything you want to add or correct, or anything
No, that sounds pretty much like everything we talked about. Yeah, I'm really excited to like map out my week. I know that like that will make me feel better, because I have done it in the past. I've just kind of been lacking with that lately. Okay,
and maybe too, you said a challenge there was you didn't really feel like you had time, and it's kind of hard if you have like a large area of time to map out. So hopefully with your you cut some hours from work, hopefully with that time you can just sit down even every Sunday night and just, like make supper, sit down, chill out, and just kind of map that out.
Right.
And just make it not a very like stressful event, right? So I think those are 3 really good goals that we identified. I just want to ask one last question here. It's going to sound kind of weird, but it's a good exercise to do.
Okay.
Just to see if there's any other things that we could be doing, any other goals that we could set together. So it's called the miracle question.
Okay.
So basically, what it does is just, like I said before, help us set any other goals or identify any other areas that we need to improve together. So what it is if you were to go to bed tonight, let's say, and some miracle happened overnight, and you weren't aware that it happened, but when you woke up in the morning, you started noticing things in your life that improved, and like overnight, all these things that are bothering you, all these issues that you're coming to me with, were just gone. What would that look like for you? What would be one of the first things you would notice? How would you know that things changed?
Definitely be with like my schoolwork. If like I woke up in the morning and I had already done paper that was due today, that would actually be like a very big goal for me. But we've talked about that.
Right.
But like,
no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
But then like also like being able to like handle both school and work and getting better at time management would probably be a really big source.
Okay. So just having things settled and figured out with your your work schedule, and having that kind of match up with your school schedule, and having time for everything in the day. That's what it would look like to you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. So that was a good exercise to do, but I think we kind of talked about those goals over our session. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like there's anything?
No, I feel that way as well.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So just to recap our goals, because we do have just a couple more minutes here. So just to finish up, we had a really good conversation today. You did really great. I think that the progress that you've made over the past week is phenomenal, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I definitely would encourage you to keep up the things that you're doing that are helping, like taking Molly for a walk and going to the gym when you can, but not letting those things be a source of stress for you, not letting them get to that point, just doing them when you have time, when you feel like you need a break, and just with the inner dialogue thing, just letting yourself know that you deserve those breaks and not feeling guilty about having to take a step back from homework.
Right.
So the positive inner dialogue, I'd really like you to try over the next week.
Okay.
Spending that time at the gym or with Molly when you do need a break, I think you should really try to do that over the next week and just see how you feel. We can talk about it. If it's not helping, of course, we can change it. But I think it would be a really positive thing for you. And then also just after today's session, just going home and making, even just for the next week, just kind of breaking your assignments up into smaller chunks and mapping them out on like a visual display, like a calendar or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think those are things that we could try over the next
Even
week?
just talking about it has made me realize that it's brought down my stress.
Okay, that's great. And that goes along too with the inner dialogue, right? Just kind of telling yourself, putting things into perspective and being positive is really, really helpful. So do you have any other questions about any of the scheduling next week? Same time?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay. Thanks for coming in, Sam.
Yeah.